Okay, I am Mark Elliot, Professor of Data Science at the University of Manchester. I'm joined today by one of the key figures in UK AI research, Professor Dame Wendy Hall. Wendy is Professor of Computer Science, Associate Vice President for International Engagement and Director of the Web Science Institute at the University of Southampton. She is a Fellow of the Royal Society, Royal Academy of Engineering and the ACM. Dame Wendy was co-chair of the UK Government's AI Review, published in 2017, and a member of the AI Council. She is advisor to the UK Government and many other governments and companies around the world, and in 2023 was appointed to the United Nations High-Level Advisory Board on Artificial Intelligence. So welcome, Wendy.
Hi, that was a good intro, actually. Did we write it for you? Was it out, or did you get that from?
I borrowed it from your website.
That's right. It got all the right stuff in it.
Good, excellent. Well, I'm glad we got off to a good start. AI, a big topic, gets a term that gets variously used and abused. So for the audience, what do you mean when you talk about AI?
Well, it has changed a lot since I started. I wrote my first the code for an AI program in 1984. That's 40 something years ago. So I think when the term was first, you have to forgive me, people. I've just come back from Australia, so if I stumble, it's because my brain's not working properly. I'm still very much deep in the jet lag from Australia. When the term was first coined, it was very much from the world of philosophy, and picking up on, we like to think in the UK that Turing started it all with his, can machines think type of article. It was very much, could we build machines that could think the way human beings think, do things the way we do things? And so it was very much about mimicking the brain, and so it's gone through several evolutions, but I use the term AI as an umbrella term for everything to do with using machines to automate things that human beings do. And the questions of, can machines think? Can they have a conscience? What moral value? All those questions are still quite philosophical and very much very steeped in ethical considerations. But when I started in computing, I did start through, first of all, computers in education, and then into my MSc thesis was intelligent tutoring systems. And I said I wrote some prologue code in 1984, where on a BBC Micro, right, which was never going to be anything like a human brain. It was just a proof of concept type illustration of what a intelligent tutoring system might be. But it was all about, as I say, trying to see if we could build machines like human beings. And then because there wasn't enough compute power or enough data to do anything like we can do today, the whole subject very much went the route of, well, if machines are going to be like human beings, they've got to be able to do the things that human beings can do. Like they've got to be able to understand the world they're in, so they've got to be able to see, hear, speak, and learn from the world around them. And so it was very much, in my early days, all about image processing, video processing, natural language processing, speech processing. It was all about trying to get computers to understand the world. Then, of course, it went through the phase, it then went through the phase where people went back to, well, if we're going to have, something that can, machines that can do more than just one thing, there needs to be interconnections, just like our brain. My brain doesn't at the moment, but, the neural connections to how our neurons talk to each other. And so people like Geoffrey Hinton started the world of advanced neural networks in the 80s, really. And at the time, everyone told Jeffrey Hinton, he was mad doing it, and he had to leave the UK and go to America to get funding, the sort of reverse of what's happening now. But that really, so that in the 80s was the very start of where we are now with AI, which is the culmination in a way for where we are now in terms of where that neural network has gone with through the world of machine learning, and now what's called generative AI, and using transformers, which are called transformers for very weird reasons, but into the world we have today, where we have amazing compute power, lots of data to train these algorithms, and they appear to be acting in a human-like way, and that's where we are today. But there's a whole load of stuff to discuss around that. But that's about. And you mentioned, did you mention Winters? Was it you that mentioned that?
I did in our preamble, but yes, since we've got to there.
That was the preamble. You see, my brain really isn't working very well. And I was reading, so I was reading something that I wrote recently, which is we have had over time, AI Winters, which when AI research went into the doldrums because it wasn't seemed to be working in any way that was useful to anybody. We went through the phase, I missed out, we went through the phase of expert systems back in the 70s and early 80s, and then a winter, and then the neural networks, and then a winter. And I would say we're in a red hot summer at the moment. And who knows whether we're going to have another winter or it's all going to cool down a bit. And we can talk about that a bit more if you want to. But
yeah, so I mean, there's a question, I think, about whether essentially what we're doing at the moment is forms of probabilistic computing, and that's the kind of discovery of the current wave, that rather than thinking about this in terms of rule sets or deterministic algorithms.
Yes, but it's going that way. See, when the generative AI systems, as produced by OpenAI, and then all the others picked them up, initially, OpenAI and Google. Oh gosh, where was I going with that one? When they were just probabilistic machines, they felt human to a lot of it. I mean, when ChatGPT came out, this amazing trigger, because anybody could use it and feel like that they were talking to something that we easily anthropomorphize stuff, and they feel like they're talking to something clever. Of course, they weren't when they were probabilistic. But then now, of course, all the companies are going into the reasoning part, and agentic computing, which is a term I hate, but it's sort of stuck. And this idea that you might have reasoning agents that will communicate with the generative AI and come up with something like a decision for you based on the information they're getting from the generative AI systems, or interacting with that anyway. And then you do begin to see that things could get quite dangerous in the wrong hands when you start building in, and there's this headlong rush to reasoning agents, and we're all going to be using them, to do everything, and the terrifying thing about it is because we don't have any real regulatory systems in this world, there's nothing to stop the companies putting anything out, and no matter how dangerous it could potentially be. But we don't want to lose the potential for it's very easy to get talking about the risks, but actually the potential for AI is in terms of doing things we couldn't possibly have done before, because of the use of the huge amount of data the AI systems today can analyze in ways that we can't. We can, potentially the impact of AI in science and in medicine is going to be profound. So we don't want to lose that, but we do need to worry about what are the potential risks down the line.
Yeah. Yeah, so the agentic AI, which of course has surfaced as you just indicated, um, is this? I mean, it felt like we went into this probabilistic kind of notion that surfaced, and then in the normal run of things, we would have kind of then that would have fizzled out, and it would turned out to be a hype. But this second thing that you describe almost seems to have happened immediately on top of it,
Yes, and
that's
that
what
is,
feels
it's almost,
different.
we haven't, I felt quite safe. Not yeah, when it was we were talking about probabilistic machines, and also the other thing is, of course, that they get the generative AI by its very nature and the way it works, the way it's trained, gets things wrong, right? It surprises me that this has taken us by surprise. And actually, I've seen several papers saying that, generative AI has to hallucinate. That's, it's the nature of the beast. And it shouldn't be surprising because we get things wrong, right? I mean, do we really think that the machines will always be perfect? I mean, if that's the case, then does that make them godlike? And does that mean it's inevitable that they will take over? But we get things wrong. We misremember things. We forget things, and we also try and fool people, or sometimes for malicious intentions, and sometimes just because we don't want to admit we don't know the answer, just like the AI systems. So it's not surprising that they get things wrong. But when you have agents that are, have rules to work out, what's how to book a holiday, or all those things that agents are good at, designed for you, and then they're into getting their information about the world from the generative AI systems that get things wrong some of the time, then where are we going to end up with all that? I worry so much about the misinformation, the disinformation, and I think we run the risk of ruining the internet because there's so much rubbish being put out there that nobody has to tidy up. It is just and I don't know enough about all the companies to know what they do with when a chat GPT or whatever gives you the wrong answer. It's up to you. You have to look at it, and this happens in education, of course. I mean, if your students are writing stuff in chat GPT using chat whatever GPT or whatever, then it makes it harder sometimes I think for the lecturers to think about, well, I've got to how do I know whether that's right or wrong? How do I check that? And where was I going with that one? What I don't know is that answer that the students might put it in their essay, but it's also an answer that the system has come up with. Does the system keep that information and use it in for the same questions asked again? I don't know enough about the commercial systems to know whether they tidy up and who's looking for their mistakes and how they test whether the facts are right or wrong. And anyway, even that very question, my truth isn't necessarily the same as your truth. So you immediately get into that sort of philosophical realm of how, and this was true of the internet before AI. How do we know what was on there was correct or not, unless it comes from a verified source?
Yes, and of course, I guess in nature of the relational elements here, that humans are asking questions of ChatGPT and other LLMs, and they're getting answers, and then maybe publishing those answers, which then become part of the.
Oh, absolutely. Now that's always been the case. I mean, we could all come up with examples of books with have what we would consider to be incorrect information. And there's a difference between, I guess, factual information and opinion, which we have always had to work out. When we read a book, we have got to work out whether the author's telling us something that's factual or something that it's their opinion. And sorry, oh, my husband will get that. Sorry. And we, I think, in the age of AI, we have to be very careful about when we're educating people, to educate them to have an open mind about where they're getting their information from, how they decide what they want to use. I hesitate to say what's right and what's wrong, because in a lot of what we do, there are no rights and wrongs. And even, you say, well, there's some things that must be factually correct, and you start looking at something in geography or physics or chemistry, but all these things stem from experiments or opinions that have been done in the past and considered to be the factually correct information today. Might change over. Oh, sorry, I'll stop waffling. But it all comes to, I always think the big problem with the Turing test, and the media like to use the Turing test, this AI can pass the Turing test, or this AI can pass the law exams. Turing, but the thing I think Turing got wrong was he overestimated the intelligence of human beings, because it's very easy to fool people, actually.
Yeah,
extremely
absolutely.
Easy.
So we must open the conversation up in a moment.
Has it gone? That time's gone very quickly.
It has gone very.
I feel like we're still skating over the surface of all this.
Absolutely. Just on I know you've been working on trust, applying the concepts of trust in AI with Kieran O'Hara. We had actually, Kieran gave a brief talk to our Lunch and Learn series in March about this piece of work. Perhaps you could tell us a bit about that?
You're mixing up two things here. Kieran's written a book about trust, right, which is he's sole author of. The work I'm doing with Kieran, it comes from a For Internet book, which is very much about the geopolitics of cyberspace. And now we're extending that to AI. And that includes elements of trust, because who do you trust when you are looking at stuff that's come from the internet or from an AI system? And how do we as human beings decide what to trust, and how should we? There's a postdoctoral researcher at Southampton, Paul Smart, who has very clear ideas about why we learn to trust from our earliest days. It's how babies, in fact, I was listening to a very good talk at the web conference last week in Australia, about how babies learn about the world. This is not new stuff, but as a baby, you experiment with what can you trust? Can you put that object down there, and is it going to stay there? And we are learning what to trust and what not to trust from a very, very early age. Some people argue, as Paul Smart does, that in fact that's fixed, then that we are hardwired as to what we trust. And it does very much depend also on what culture you're brought up in, and what geopolitical, what culture and what government system you're brought up in. I think we're all in the West, we're questioning our governments now in a way we never used to, about whether we trust what they say or not, in ways we never used to. And we've always, my mother always said to me, this is, don't believe what you read in the newspapers, right? and we have to decide which papers, which politics, which writers we trust when we read them. And the same will apply to AI systems when we use them.
Yeah, absolutely. So just ask you to operate a crystal ball. If you can imagine 10 years' time, What will the average human's experience of AI be like? We won't hold you to this.
Well, it is moving so incredibly fast. It's very hard to predict. If you and I think also the dynamics, we talk about this in our books, Kira and I, the commercial companies are pushing now very hard to be the first, the fastest, not necessarily the cheapest, but the most used system, and because there's no regulation, they don't have to prove that they've tested anything before they released it. So, and we've got, in the UK, we've got our AI Security Institute, as it's now called, who are testing through the APIs, the foundation models from the US, but we've got the stuff coming from China, DeepSeek this year and everything. And now the reasoning's going on top of that. And I heard a very, depressing talk from Yoshua Bengio, who's one of the Turing Award winners, one of the key proponents of, early developers of the LLM type system. And he was, I've never heard him be so depressed about the future in terms of how the systems could start to dominate because they'll outthink us, or they'll outmaneuver us, or they will start to, just like Hal in 2001, I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that. And he is proposing a system, a way we should be thinking about moving forward to avoid that scenario. But there's no reason why the companies will have to worry about that. They're going to push ahead what's right for the shareholders. And I think that, I look back, this is my last point because we need to I look back to the way the web, I've just been to the web conference, and the big, international World Wide Web conference. The first one was in 1994. And I look back to the way the web took off. And it was free, and Tim, the system, it was all open source, and it was all about innovation, and then as the companies grew, and it's those companies that are, the Googles and the Amazons, and they're the companies that are giving us AI, the Microsofts that came out of the web world. It was fast. I mean, the growth was exponential, but there was that was the beginning of, how much do we trust the information on the internet? And now we're building on top of that with the AI, and it's like, where can we go to get the verified information that we need in order to tackle this world? And what are the company's responsibilities? What are government's responsibilities? What are our responsibilities? Look what we've done with social media, unregulated, open innovation space. And, it's led to all sorts of problems that we're having to retrofit. And this isn't AI. This is just what's it doing to our children's brains type stuff. Anyway, sorry, I could waffle on forever about this, but
okay, let's open up to questions.
So my answer to your question was, I don't know.
It was very well argued. I don't know.